Good morning, everyone, and welcome to TechFire this morning in association with Equinix. My name is Niall Kitson. I'm the editor of Tech Central and your moderator for this morning's webinar, where we will be asking the burning question, can your company keep up with the new digital economy? This session is being recorded and will be available on our website, techfire.ie, as we will be referencing a paper from IDC, which will be informing some of our discussion later on, which will also be available for download later. It's entitled Taking Digital Infrastructure to the Next Level to Accelerate the Digital Economy in Ireland. It just rolls off the tongue and it will be available for you to download and to read later. At registration, you will have had a chance to submit a question for the panel, but if a point comes up that you would like to raise, you can, of course, pop it in the chat and we will do our best to get around to it later, time permitting, of course. As always, there is a prize for one lucky delegate. This morning, we have an Apple Watch SE. The only catch, as you will, is that you have to be around in order to claim your prize. So please do stay until the end of the presentation. So, can your company keep up with the new digital economy? The COVID-19 pandemic and Brexit have forced an unprecedented step change for digital transformation. From multinational enterprises to local SMEs, 2021 is going to be another challenging year. Our companies will need strong digital infrastructure to stay competitive. To explore this topic, we are joined by three experts this morning. Christoph Stankiewicz, who is Global Solutions Architect at Equinix. Hugh O'Donoghue, who is Chief Technology Officer with Smartbox. And in our Q&A later, we will be joined by Equinix Managing Director for Ireland, Maurice Mortel. For the moment, I'd just like to draw on some key findings from IDC, and I'm going to share my screen with you now. So according to IDC, the public cloud services market in Ireland will be worth 1.2 billion by 2024, and that's up from 499 million in 2019, growing in double digits at a compound annual growth rate of 19.4% for the period 2019 to 2024. Now, we have to look at these stats with something of a caveat in that a lot of the insights that we're gaining at the moment are done with an element of, I suppose, assuming it will be business as usual for the coming few years. And of course, it's not going to be. So if we have a look at, again, where things are going in the normal scheme of things, 62% of European organizations say they will increase or sustain their spend on public and private cloud services. And a further 72% of European organizations said they will increase or sustain their spending on connectivity and networking infrastructure. Now, it does beg the question, what is the other 38 and 28% of companies actually doing? Are they happy with the solutions they have at the moment? Do they think that things are going to come out bright and shiny by the end of the pandemic? Or are they just putting off their infrastructure spend at the moment until things come right? So it's an interesting question to look at. The report also asked what kind of infrastructure types are being used across the Emea region. And again, we have some very interesting findings at both ends of the scale, really, where you have, I suppose, the laggards, if you will, people that are still running on-premises or co-location cloud specifically, around 14%. And again, this asks the question, is this a matter of people wanting to stay on-premise or not seeing the benefit of cloud for various reasons? Maybe it's security, maybe it's scalability. And of course, we'll be dealing with these issues as we go along. And at the other end of the scale, we have 2% of companies who use public cloud exclusively. So one would imagine that these are what they call, I guess, born in the cloud companies of various stripes and standards. Of course, I imagine we're looking at the startup sector there in particular. And then in the middle ground, we have almost half saying that they take kind of a balanced approach, but are sort of either willing to look at public cloud or are on that journey already. So let's have a look at European IT spending across environments. Again, these are figures from 2019 versus 2022. So there's an element of hoping for the best, I suppose. And you'll see that it's more or less steady as she was, slight decrease in spending on core data centers. But if you look at the figures for secondary or geographically distributed data centers and public cloud and infrastructure as a service, we are starting to see a little bit of a pull away there towards sort of cloud-based solutions, towards, or rather, away from that traditional on-premise model. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen just ahead of Christoph's presentation. And I would like to throw open our first poll for the morning. So we'd like to know, how did these digital infrastructure perform during 2020? And I'm going to launch this poll and we'll see what you guys, our delegates, think. So did it meet all your needs? Did it perform well enough, but the experience showed up areas that you could have improved? Did you find that it struggled with demand due to internal factors? Maybe there was a case of a lack of management buy-in or some sort of resistance, perhaps budget related along the way. Or did you struggle with demand owing to external factors such as maybe perhaps you've struggled to keep up with customer demands, or you've had problems with keeping a customer experience in line with what people expect from this new digital economy, where people do expect a seamless user experience, kind of similar to what you would expect on the high street, except online in the case of retail. And of course, Hugh will have some interesting ideas on that as we continue. So I'm just going to close off the polling there. And it looks to see that people are generally pretty happy with their experience, although it did show up areas that they might like to have a look at. Which I think is a fairly healthy response, really, because one would hope that going through a pandemic, that you don't come out the other end and go, do you know what, everything worked just fine. We can keep going steady as she goes and we won't have to worry. So we'll talk about this finding later on. So now I'd like to hand over to Christoph, who is the, actually, I'll let him talk for himself. So Christoph, if you'd like to take over, I'm going to mute and stop my video and you can go.
Okay, definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Neil. Welcome, everyone. I'm Krzysztof Stankiewicz and I'm Global Solution Architect working at Equinix. I'm covering Dublin, I'm in Ireland and a couple of other markets in Europe. And today I'm going to show you just a couple of slides to refresh what Equinix does, and because we have changed a lot since a few years, so I think it's worth to mention that. So as you know, and this is something that everyone is talking about, digital transformation is a must. We have observed that people that were not in a track of digital transformation, that were not transforming themselves, those companies actually disappeared. It's not only over pandemic period, but even before we saw that trend. And this is actually there are a number of analyses that are saying that, confirming that. We are doing our analysis as well. This is a GXI volume 4. We will share that as well after the meeting with you guys. So, but what I wanted to say today is that Equinix is well known as a data center company, and of course we have a global reach and many markets that are already covered by Equinix data centers. And people tend to know us as a data center company, and of course we do have multiple data centers as well in Dublin. But actually Equinix is more like a digital infrastructure company these days. And why I'm saying that is that because actually our data centers are our ground floor for us today to build a platform. platform where we have multiple products that are helping our customers with the digital journey. And today, of course, we are not going to go through all of that because we have a limited amount of time. But I would like to focus on certain aspects that are helping during those times, and that are actually the most important, in my opinion, these days. So we will start with Equinix Fabric, and Equinix Fabric is actually our backbone, our network backbone that is helping us to connect two points together. So as you can see, our data centers are connected to each other, and we are letting our customers to use that backbone for their own purpose. So how they could use that? So first of all, of course, they could connect to cloud providers. So potentially you can assume that being present, or maybe even with a remote port, you can connect directly, privately to cloud providers like AWS with Direct Connect, like Azure with ExpressRoute. But what if not? If there is no like a cloud footprint inside of like, for example, in Dublin, we don't have Google Cloud. We can actually create a remote connection to other locations as well. And I'm not saying here only about London or Amsterdam, Frankfurt. You can actually create a connection even to across regions like America and Asia Pacific. So we can actually enable customers to build a proper hybrid solution where they have dedicated private connection to cloud providers with a short bandwidth. But that's not all. This is only part of the functionality. So what we have developed as well is that we allow our customers to connect to their partners and to their customers. So basically, customer A can talk to customer B, just setting up a virtual connection. And this virtual connection is actually managed through self-service portal. So once customer is a part of Equinix Fabric platform, they are actually able to create that connectivity in a matter of minutes. So I think this is super important and super flexible way to achieve connectivity. From other use cases, of course, customer can use this solution to connect to themselves. Let's assume that they do have a presence in Dublin and presence in Frankfurt. They could actually use Equinix Fabric to connect those data centers together and exchange the traffic, of course. And as I said before, everything is done over web service portal. So actually customer can access the portal, can create a connection, destroy connection. They can even increase and decrease the bandwidth. And since this is charged per day, so this is kind of pay as you go, then definitely is very flexible for our customers to create their digital strategy for the networking. And there are multiple services that are available. Cloud providers are, of course, one of the major ones that are accessed by our customers, but there are other, of course, other providers available on the platform, like F5 with their DDoS prevention systems, like Zoom, like WebEx. So there are multiple services that you can connect to just using the Equinix Fabric port. And I just wanted to show you one of the examples that we see quite often within our customers. So basically, they're using this Equinix Fabric to create a dedicated connection to AWS and Oracle, and they are keeping application in AWS, for example, in Frankfurt. They are connecting to Oracle in Frankfurt as well, so they can build a proper hybrid / multi-cloud strategy on top of that solution. So applications sitting on the AWS are using Oracle, and that's perfectly fine as long as your routers are sitting inside of Frankfurt. But what if we are not having our network footprint in those locations? This is something that is actually could be covered by other product. It's called Network Edge, and Network Edge is nothing more than a virtual network device that our customers can order over a portal. So they could create a network device, create dedicated connections to AWS and Oracle, and have a Equinix Fabric connection towards, for example, Dublin. Okay, so this is something that could be done very easily. It could be done within actually within a minute, because everything is done in automated fashion. So what you can choose here, you can of course choose like a Cisco, Palo Alto, Juniper devices, and these devices are later on managed by you. So basically, you can log into the to the device. You can create a firewall policies, and so we're in control of that device at the end of the day. And our customers are also using this as a network POP for their SD-WAN strategy. So basically, if they have multiple branch offices located in a location where they don't have a hybrid slash just a data center, they could use that to build a SD-WAN strategy with a Velo Cloud or other CloudGenix or other SD-WAN solutions. Moving on. So we are able to deliver those virtual devices, virtual network devices in a few locations. Everything is done through self-service portal. We have either subscription-based model or bring your own license model. And of course, multiple version of licenses. So it's very flexible. Once again, you can create that device, you can destroy that device. And of course, there is a minimum commitment for 1 month, but after 1 month, you can do whatever you want with this device at the end of the day. It's fully managed by you. Okay, so but what if you don't have, if you need to grow and you don't have physical equipment in certain data centers? Actually, we got you covered. So basically, quite recently, we have introduced Equinix Metal. And Equinix Metal is a pure bare metal as a service. So this could be either expansion of your existing physical infrastructure co-location within our data center, or could be standalone bare metal as a service located in places where you are trying to expand, for example, in your markets. And of course, it's embedded with Equinix Fabric, so you can have a private connectivity to that, and you can have connectivity to cloud providers. So you can actually build a hybrid solution with your VMware or your OpenStack, fully managed by you, connected to AWS, but on devices that are in as a service mode, in basically physical equipment as a service. So everything is automated, so you don't have to wait too much long time for the device to be up and running for you. So it's in certain locations it's about 16 seconds to have Kubernetes up and running. It's automated, so you can actually use API calls to contact and to create, to spin up, spin down those physical servers as you need it. So it's very flexible in a way to build your infrastructure. It's global. It's live in a couple of metros already, but we are building our presence in more locations. Integrated with DevOps, with Kubernetes, interconnected with Equinix Fabric and other, with other cloud providers. So this is just to indicate what we have today with physical servers, what kind of experience you might want to have. But if you would like to see something else, just reach out to us. We are definitely willing to talk to you about your needs. And of course, this is one of the most integrated DevOps ecosystems. So we have integrations with multiple automation tools, Terraform, Ansible, Kubernetes. We are integrated with Anthos. So I think it's very easy to be done, to be used by DevOps community. This is just to show you the map of our presence. Of course, we are planning to grow, and if you are willing to know more, just reach out to us, and we can talk about this later on. So, just and I'm actually finishing my presentation. Just wanted to recap what we have discovered, what we have learned today. So, basically, Equinix Fabric can achieve a connectivity to cloud providers, to software as a service providers, so to Zoom, Salesforce, and even to the internet. We are helping our customers to talk to each other locally, so they can actually use cross connects to connect locally between each other. We're able to connect you to internet exchange, where you can actually reach out to internet service providers and content service providers very quickly, or you can just expose your services to be closer to the user to decrease the latency. And of course, we do have certain services that you can use on top of that, like Equinix Metal, Precision Time that we have not covered today, or Smart Key. So I just want to, and you are center of everything, where you can actually reach out to those services, to internet service providers, to network service providers, as you are sitting inside of a carrier neutral facility, which is open to any business. So what I would like to encourage you. So we are more than happy to have a meeting with you. We are performing strategy meetings, strategy briefings, where we can actually discuss about your priorities for your market and priorities for upcoming digital projects. Please reach out to us, and waiting to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Christoph. You can mute and depart from us. And of course, Christoph will be joining us later for the Q&A session. Just before we get on to speak with Hugh O'Donoghue, CTO with Smartbox, I'd just like to launch our second survey at the moment, our second and final survey for the moment. So what we would like to ask you is, have you considered changing your digital transformation strategy over the past 12 months? So I'm just going to launch our poll, and we'll see what you guys think. So again, it looks like we're pretty much on track with what we expected, that, changing times have required changing strategies. So I'll just put an end to that poll. So 71% yes and 29% no. Now we'll move on to Hugh O'Donoghue, who is Chief Technology Officer with Smartbox, who are a provider of what they're calling retail experiences, gift experiences, which we'll jump into. But Hugh, if you can tell us a little bit about the company.
Yes, thanks very much, Niall, and hi everybody. Yeah, look, what Smartbox do is we sell gift experiences, both online and in retail. Historically in retail, but more and more going forward on the online side. We operate in 11 countries around Europe, France being probably our biggest market. And the proposition really is, as a customer, you can go into a bookstore or a Fnac store, for example, in France. And in that store somewhere, there'll be a section of gift experiences, gift boxes, as we might call them, which you can purchase. They range in price from 20 euros to 200 euros. And typically they're a gift for somebody else. And it allows that person then to do pick from a selection of experiences contained within that box. Historically speaking, we'd have been very busy or very strong in the hotel stays, weekends aways, breaks, and all the variety of things there, castles to hotels, and dining out as well. So kind of gastro experiences, as we call them. So that's the proposition. Quite large. We're probably the largest in Europe. We are the largest in Europe doing that. As I say, we operate in 11 countries. We have around 43,000 partners across Europe. So these are different partners who provide locations for experiences. We sell about 250,000 different types of experiences. And, you know, we operate in around 14,000 points of sale across Europe as well. So it's a reasonably kind of established business in that perspective, been around 10 years. So that's what we do. I think too, you know, we've always had an online experience, an online offering, selling our products online. Historically speaking, up until recently, those products have very much been a replica of what we sold in retail. And that's kind of one of the things that's changed recently, a lot faster than maybe would have otherwise, due to COVID from that perspective. So that's a little bit about Smartbox.
Yeah, and being in that retail space, I mean, you have been on the front line of COVID. You know, not to sort of denigrate what we talk about when we say frontline workers, but of course, retail has been incredibly hard hit by COVID. So how have you found in working with customers how expectations have changed? Are we seeing that lack of patience, I suppose, on the part of consumers, where they expect things to work online exactly the same as they work on high street? And if there isn't that frictionless customer experience, people are likely to I suppose, leave businesses wholesale.
Yeah, look, it's a good question. I think there are, you know, you've always wanted a good online experience as frictionless as possible. I think what we're seeing is a new category of customer go online, which hadn't necessarily been as familiar with it or done that as much before, especially in countries like Italy, where online penetration has been kind of lagging the rest of Europe up until recently. So getting that right has been very important. But I think also enticing them, how you acquire and discount and promote online is very different to how you do it in retail. And historically, we and retailers themselves would have challenges around channel conflict, where, you know, they can't do things online because it's not reflected in retail, and there's been a resistance to do that at times. But that's, you know, we've seen that disappear, I think, over the last while, and people are kind of using all the online levers they can in order to attract customers and keep them and convert them for all intents and purposes. So yeah, I'd agree. You know, there's a focus on really engaging with the customers, especially when they're a new kind of customer, often, making sure it's the best experience possible, and you know, attracting them and making the offering very attractive to them, so that you can get them through that what might not be their first, but might not be one of their very few online transactions that they will possibly do.
So this has sort of put you on very much an accelerated digital transformation journey, where it's not just internally, but externally to your customers as well. So how have you found that journey increase in pace? I mean, being across Europe, I imagine you've been absolutely inundated and your resources have been stretched.
Yeah, so I think, you know, we've early on made a conscious decision that, you know, where we've got resources and budget for, we should shift it towards the digital side, because there's lots of things we want to do, obviously, but moving it towards the digital side was key. So I think that has been a decision we made pretty early on, which has been good. So I think from our perspective, the challenges we've had really is, you know, one of the things we've done over the last year, 10 months, is launch new online only products, lots of them, as much as possible. In a retail environment, you've only got only so much shelf space. You can only show so many products, and the right products on the right shelf is its own thing. But in online, obviously, you don't have those constraints nearly as much. So being able to launch lots of new products quickly has been a thing that we've put quite a bit of time into, and we've launched tens of thousands of new products probably over the last year. So that's brought demands from a technical perspective on how we get those up from a capacity perspective, the systems we have both internally, externally, and how they manage them. Size and scale of all that has been something that we've had to kind of look towards being able to do in what we do. And obviously at the same time, you want to produce a good experience, make sure your website and your mobile apps, etc., are running as performant as they always were. So that's been probably the biggest challenge we had in many ways, is to scale up that product set that we have online, because it no longer just reflects what's on sale in retail anymore. It's got its own destiny from that perspective.
And looking at your own stack in what you're using at the moment, I guess you've had to adopt a horses for courses approach, really. And do you find there has been problems in sort of constructing your own stack and looking towards solutions and going, you know, there's a compatibility issue here, or look, let's start this off premise or something like that? Have you found much in the way of conflict between legacy technologies and things that you're looking to explore?
We probably have a little bit. I wouldn't say dramatically. I think, you know, we always have an aspect of legacy technologies which are trying to, you know, reduce the technical debt that you might have. That's natural in any company. But I would say that, you know, we've been reasonably good ourselves at trying to keep that down and, you know, reduce those legacy technologies that we have. I think what we have seen is that, you know, one of the things we've had to do over the last year is really look at our costs and make sure we optimize them as much as possible. And, you know, we have a mixture of public cloud plus our own colo private cloud solutions. And that's been very helpful in many ways, because we can then optimize our costs based on where we need to grow and where we can consolidate stuff back onto our own premises, say, for example, or onto Equinix premises. So that's been very helpful. So that's driven a lot of demands in ourselves. But I think our technology decisions have been to date have been pretty good, luckily enough. But, you know, it's certainly something to watch.
So there has been a certain level of pragmatism, and there hasn't been that sort of embrace the fear when it comes to scalability and security.
No, yeah, it's pragmatic, but we're very comfortable. Like, you know, we treat the systems that we host in Equinix pretty much on par with the systems that we host with AWS or Azure. The differentiation between the two of them is really about, you know, how the software is deployed and the technology is used, rather than the infrastructure, the connectivity, or the security from our perspective. So we have certain systems which are very public cloud friendly by their nature, and they utilize some of the technologies available there. Other systems are more traditionalized, maybe just being virtualized, say, in a standard enough way, and we have a lot of ability to move those between the different components that we have, that whether it be public or private cloud. So that's been very, very helpful from a kind of growth perspective, but also from a cost containment perspective, which has been, you know, a focus, frankly, over the last year as well, because the digital side, the online side of our business has maintained and done well, but that's where we have had to be careful on how we manage our budgets.
Well, thanks so much, Hugh, for your time there. I think we've run out of time for your particular segment. So at this stage, I would like to invite Christoph back to join us. And I would also like to invite Maurice Mortel to join us as well. Now, I imagine an awful lot of you watching us are familiar with Maurice already, but I'll give you a quick bio just by way of introduction. Maurice has 20 years experience in the technology sector, specializing in the data center business. He came to Equinix following the acquisition of Telecity Group in 2016. And prior to his stint there, Maurice served as CEO of Data Electronics, again, a company that I'm sure you're all very familiar with. He's regarded as a thought leader and also a contributor to the research that we've been referencing from IDC this morning. Thank you for joining us, Maurice.
Good morning.
So again, we will be keeping an eye on the chat. If you have any questions for any member of the panel, that's just fine. So Maurice, I suppose in looking at the challenges that are facing Equinix at the moment, there is that issue of the speed of digital transformation, and customers, sort of potential customers anyway, coming at you from every which angle. So how have you found the offerings having to evolve? You know, this idea of innovation at speed. Are you having to keep up with demand?
Yeah, I suppose there's been a very, you know, significant increase just for the supporting remote working for businesses. So we've had to, you know, adapt very quickly to support the likes of Zoom and some of the other online business applications and a lot of the content providers, so your Netflix and online gaming. So that's just been a sort of byproduct of the pandemic. So we've reacted to that, and I think that's worked very well for us. I think on the business side, we've seen an acceleration of digital transformation, or certainly the journey into digital transformation, and that's been driven by, I think, some businesses were maybe not as prepared as they thought they were for what has happened. So being able to support their workforce, but also looking at how do they scale their business, and how agile can their business be, in an environment like this, where you can't travel and you can't get to locations, and can you scale your business? Can you bring your product to new markets? How do you evolve your go-to-market strategy? So we've seen and are having a lot of conversations with businesses around, how can we support them in doing that? And I think Christoph sort of hit the nail on the head earlier on in this presentation. I mean, Equinix has shifted considerably from where it was, to the world's digital infrastructure company, and that's for a reason. I mean, it's been building a huge global platform for the last 20 years. It's in 229 data centers across 29 countries. There's over 60 cities, and there's a huge digital eco-rich systems now in pretty much all vertical markets. There's over 10,000 customers, and if you look at that platform that Christoph was alluding to there, you can effectively grow your business within that ecosystem, across verticals with partners, systems integrators, customers, financial services. You can cross-reference, you can interconnect, you can do an awful lot within that environment without necessarily having to get the skills yourself. And I think our experience has been with a lot of the businesses that are looking at transformation now is that if anything's core to your business, you hang on to it. But anything that isn't, we can support certainly, or put them in contact with the right partner within our environment. And we're still seeing the vast adoption of what we're doing is multi-cloud, hybrid cloud solutions. So there's legacy infrastructure or applications that maybe aren't great for adapting into the cloud, and then we have sort of very standard stuff that is very easy to use in the cloud, and how do those two sort of talk to each other properly. So but yeah, I mean, everything has accelerated, I suppose. It isn't. I don't think it's something that we weren't ready for. It's just that it is coming at us a lot quicker.
One of the things in the IDC report that came up is looking at specific verticals and which verticals have performed better than others. I imagine fintech is doing very well. I imagine manufacturing is doing well. Which verticals have surprised you in terms of their performance?
I suppose, I mean, fintech is one that because it's quite highly regulated, and there's a lot of issues around data and GDPR and I suppose jurisdictions. It has really accelerated. So it has transcends pretty much all verticals. If you look at payments, for instance, which has really taken off significantly over the last year because of online activity with retail. If you take our financial services broader ecosystem, you've got a whole bunch of individual customers that are now interconnected. So if you take mobile operators, you take network service providers, you take fraud companies, you take security companies, you take payments companies, you take online payments companies, mobile banking, mobile applications, and have all those looking at how you've got a business that you're trying to run online, and it's fintech, and it's got about security, and it's got about data. 95% of those customers are already connected into that ecosystem. So you connect into them and use them as part of your model to deliver your service. That has accelerated more because of the environment that we're in, but it's one that we've seen a huge uptake in because of the fact that most of these customers are sitting within that environment.
I suppose this is a good opportunity to bring in the rest of the panel now and expand our conversation. On the subject of pain points, which pain points are recurring, and which have sort of been mitigated by digital transformation, by the move towards hybrid technologies? I'll go through the whole panel, but I suppose to start with you, Maurice, which pain points have you seen, I suppose, become exacerbated or become alleviated?
Well, alleviated, I say, would be latency and security. Direct interconnection is much better than access over the public cloud. We know that. So that has that is accelerating significantly, and we brought the large workloads right beside where the infrastructure is, with direct connections and with high levels of security. So that's certainly been a large acceleration we've seen over the last sort of 7 or 8 months.
Hugh, just to throw that over to you, I mean, as a CTO with a particular company, so you've been dealing with very specific problems. So what has your experience been?
Yeah, I'd agree with Morris on the connectivity side. It's key, really. It just enables so much. Having good, reliable, high connectivity is super important. We certainly rely on that an awful lot. In some ways, I would say actually, supporting a remote workforce has been no small challenge itself in many ways. We have 1,000 people working from home sometimes. So that has been another challenge, which, once again, connectivity comes into that, the security aspect of it as well, and providing them the right services, etc. So we've had to do quite a few things just to move data around and manage our connectivity as well to support them doing that in a way that doesn't affect their productivity. So I think that's been a challenge that's been overcome very quickly that otherwise would have taken a long, long time to overcome in many other ways. So no small piece in that, and it's as important in many ways as changing the way we work and how we're efficient as anything else we might do. So it's been great to see.
Christoph, from your perspective, as an architect, you must see an awful lot of companies coming to you with very specific problems that they want solved. So what has your experience been?
It's definitely very similar to Hugh and Maris. So basically, companies are struggling with remote workers. They've been not prepared properly for this to happen, because it was like after a week everything was closed basically, and customers were supposed to deliver remote access for people that were working from offices. And this actually pointed out to multiple issues with the network connectivity, with internet congestion, with problems with users that are actually not able to connect to VPNs, for example, because customers' devices were actually overloaded with the number of users. So they had to adapt very quickly to, for example, to cloud providers with remote desktops, to solutions like Network Edge, where they could actually spin up additional VPN gateways for their users. So this is something that we have observed, and of course, since everything has moved to kind of digital, I mean, every business moved to digital. We see the data explosion, which actually even greater impact gave on the connectivity between companies as well, between partners.
I suppose that data explosion, you can't get away from talking about infrastructure without the explosion in data and the various problems that brings. So Morris, from a business perspective, how do you become, I suppose, an advocate maybe, or how do you sort of add calm, I suppose, to customers who come to you going, look, we have all this data. Is this a problem for us, or is this a solution you can help us, whether it's retention or interpretation, or simply, can we just silo this?
Yeah, so I mean, the growth of our industry over the next sort of 5 to 10 years has been driven by the growth in data. So that's what's driving that. And I think that we're looking at, distributed data. We're looking at digital edge. How do you access data and collect data, and then how does that data get analyzed and shared amongst partners and businesses and customers, so that it's used effectively for a business advantage or to inform people. So I a bit of the messaging that Christoph gave there around sort of being able to give customers the agility to grow with stuff like bare metal and infrastructure as a service. I think what we're trying to say is that digital infrastructure should be consumed as a service. It's not something that businesses should be spending large capital amounts investing in, because it's now out there as a service. It's evolved into such a state where it can be consumed like that. And if people want to ramp up and ramp down depending on data volumes, then we can support them in doing that. It's as easy as sort of getting a connection onto that portal, as Christoph said. So I don't think we're concerned about the volume. I think that maybe how that data is gathered and then sort of transferred back into the compute centers. I think personally, I feel that 5G will play a large part in that rollout. If you look to the types of devices, and we look at the AI, and we look at machine learning and where those devices are and how quickly people want to get access to data, then that's going to play a part. And I think we're comfortable, certainly within our infrastructure, that we can cater for that type of demand and growth.
You're dealing with the issues data bring pretty much on a daily basis. So how are you handling your data in terms of analytics, but also storage and compliance?
Yeah, so look, we've definitely seen a growth in the amount of data we have, and also just a demand to do more analytics as well. So taking the security aspect of data aside, which is its own thing, I think more and more companies are going to have just a new strategy, or maybe a tweak in their strategy around how they manage their data, because the demands in it, the types of data, plus where it's being accessed from, I think has changed a lot over the last while, and it's probably going to stay changed. But just to your point about the analytics side, one of the things we've seen with COVID is it's a huge demand for more analytics, and questions come from the business teams, our finance teams, because as you understand with COVID, it's hard to predict the end, and it's not like a certain customer, you won certain business or lost certain business, and you can quantify it. Unfortunately, with COVID, it keeps there's no end in sight, or at least at some point in time. So scenario planning and analytics has been a hugely important part for us, and one of the biggest areas in the technology team that has been busy in that area. So having that right is more important than ever. It was always important, but I would suggest it's even more important than ever going forward. And there's a lot of aspects to that, how you manage your data, where it's stored, processing it, analytics, but it's something that companies probably, I'm sure they're putting more time into understanding what their strategy is there.
Christoph, would you like to chime in on that point?
Yeah, definitely. So problems with the amount of data is actually obvious, and as we saw, where to store this data, where to process that data. Should we push all of this data to the cloud, or should this stay at the like Equinix data center? What about the traffic? What is going to happen if we need to pull that data from cloud provider? What are the restrictions from the compliance point of view, GDPR and security? Do they want to have this data be stored in certain locations, and how this should be stored? Should be this encrypted or not encrypted? So there are very data is new gold, and so everyone wants to protect it, and of course this brings to new problems, new solutions, of course, like a smart key, where you can just use export private keys to some safe place. But definitely, this is something that is very attractive today. And what else? Where to if the data is stored in one place, how to migrate this data to another one? So actually, there's a very good use case for one of our customers from automotive sector, which is building autonomous vehicles. They are storing tons of data that is related to R&D, to sensors in cars. Once they are building the algorithms for autonomous vehicles, and they are gathering this data in one place, but they need to analyze this data in a different place, and how to transfer that data. We are talking here about petabytes of storage that is required. So these are very very tricky questions, and we are here to help with solutions for that, because we were able to to solve some of those problems. So yeah, definitely, it's a very interesting topic.
Looking towards some of the European IT spend that we saw from the IDC paper earlier on there, Morris, have you been surprised by, I guess, only the incremental pace of change at the moment, where we are still seeing a very small percentage of companies going sort of public cloud first? Do you think this is becoming or is going to become the norm, or are we going to see the dominance of that sort of balanced approach, that sort of middle ground?
I think we're looking at the middle ground. I think we're still seeing, as I said, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud is the sort of path of choice. We did a report a couple of years ago, and I think I have the stat right. I think that 85% of on-premise data centers will be gone in the next 5 to 10 years. So, there's going to be a bigger shift out of the on-premise, because it just doesn't give companies or businesses the agility they need to move, or the speed at which they need to move to support their workforce and their customers and their growth. So I still think we're going to have that multi environment where you give people the choice to look at their private cloud deployments on-ramp to whichever cloud provider they want to choose with whatever applications. As the guys are mentioning, there is a, depending on the industry, but obviously in some industries it's very, very sensitive, like financial services is very sensitive around data and GDPR, and health services, and where does data reside, and how do you get access to it. And I think that you can cater for an awful lot of those compliance and regulatory requirements within the facilities that we have sort of in Ireland and globally.
Hugh, I'd just like to raise that question with you on GDPR and where data is hosted and controlled and processed. As a company primarily dealing with Europe, has this come up as an issue before, especially when we're looking towards Brexit and the possibility, nay likelihood, of the UK coming up with their own data regime?
Yeah, no, it's certainly something we keep close eye on, like any good company would in this sense. But I think there was probably a scramble a couple of years ago to make sure that all your third-party providers could support your GDPR compliance, but that seems to have matured quite well now. So most of them would provide the facilities to where your data is stored and the kind of legal kind of belts and braces that need to go around that. So I think that was certainly an issue a couple of years ago, and as I say, a bit of a scramble there on GDPR day. But now it's something that I think everybody's mature to it at this stage. So as long the support from the third parties is there, and then it's a matter of you to implement your own policies and protections around that. Then, so certainly something to look out for, though, by all accounts. It's certainly something to look out for. But the support is now at this stage is really good from lots of people in that perspective. The UK, we don't use the UK ourselves. There's so many other choices. Honestly, that it's not something that's a big issue for us, at least anyway.
So no, just on that, sorry, just to maybe to add to that. So we're seeing some movement of infrastructure jurisdictionally to be in the European Union, within our own customer base. So we're catering for that depending on where they want to be, in which country. So that has happened. I think the GDPR component, I think largely the UK have adopted the same policies, so it's not massively different. But obviously there is an element of where stuff gets transacted and where data needs to be held if it's a jurisdictional thing. So there has been some movement around since sort of Brexit was announced.
Okay, unfortunately, that's brought us up to time with us. So many thanks, Christoph, Hugh, and Morris. If you'd like to depart us, I can do some final bit of housekeeping. So thank you all, gentlemen. So that's it for TechFire this morning. As promised, we have a draw for our very excellent Apple Watch SE to help us all with our Couch to 5K dailies, which I'm sure we're all doing at the moment. Our producer, Dave, is making his selection as we speak. And our winner is Michael McGinn, who is the IT manager with Tato Snacks. So congratulations, Michael, and congratulations. If you would wish to rewatch this event, it will be able to do so on techfire.ie. I also believe Equinix will have their own facility to re-show it as well, in a much more slick form, I imagine, than we were able to do this morning. Of course, if you would like to keep up with any further news and events, you can visit techcentral.ie. And of course, keep your eyes open for any further events that will be happening in this series on techfire.ie. So thank you all for your attendance this morning. I think we've had a very informative conversation, and have a good Wednesday. Thank you.